Fue consultora del Banco Mundial, donde desempeñó tareas relacionadas con el ambiente para países suramericanos y de Centroamérica. Durante 2012 se desempeñó como subdirectora de Desarrollo Sostenible en el Departamento Nacional de Planeación y fue asesora de despacho del Ministerio de Defensa entre 2008 y 2009. Graciela Melitsko Thornton es gerente del programa Creative Green Julie's Bicycle. Ella lidera el equipo de consultoría y capacitación de Julie's Bicycle y tiene una experiencia profesional de más de 20 años en el área de desarrollo sustentable y cambio climático. Su diverso conjunto de habilidades incluye el desarrollo de políticas y gestión de proyectos para ciudades de bajo carbono, la gestión ambiental para los sectores de artes y cultura, así como la promoción de la energía renovable en el Reino Unido, Europa y América Latina. Arturo Corredor, de Ibagué Musical Sostenible, economista de la Universidad Jorge Tadeo Lozano, doctor en sostenibilidad de la Universidad Europea de Energía y Medio Ambiente y con estudios de máster y especialización en temas de finanzas públicas y desarrollo sustentable. Es cofundador de la corporación Páramo Savers y también hace parte o ha trabajado con el British Council y otras organizaciones en temas de sustentabilidad. Junto a Páramo Savers desarrolla el programa Ibagué Musical Sostenible, que busca la concepción de eventos artísticos desde una conciencia de producción y consumo responsable en aspectos ambientales, culturales, económicos y sociales. Leonardo Andrés Bueno Castellanos, del Ministerio de Ambiente y Desarrollo Sostenible, politólogo de la Universidad Nacional de Colombia y especialista en gestión energética y ambiental de la Universidad de La Salle, con más de 10 años de experiencia en entidades del Sistema Nacional Ambiental en temáticas como incorporación de la gestión del riesgo en el ordenamiento ambiental y territorial, identificación de impactos del Acuerdo de Paz en la gestión ambiental y negocios verdes. Principalmente y actualmente, pues apoya la coordinación del Grupo de Competitividad y Promoción de Negocios Verdes de la Oficina de Negocios Verdes y Sostenibles del Ministerio de Ambiente y Desarrollo Sostenible. El moderador de este panel es el señor Ramiro Osorio, director del Teatro Mayor Julio Mario Santo Domingo, donde nos encontramos en el día de hoy y a quien le damos la bienvenida en esta mañana. Bienvenido.
Buenos días a todos. Bienvenidos a esta tercera sesión de paneles de discusión sobre arte y sustentabilidad. Hoy abordaremos un eje transversal para la construcción de iniciativas sustentables en el arte, la incidencia en política pública. Conscientes de la importancia de conectar los lineamientos políticos con las iniciativas avanzadas y desde la realización del primer foro internacional Respira el Arte, Artes ha estado desarrollando mesas bimestrales sobre arte, medio ambiente y política pública. En esta, entidades como el Teatro Mayor Julio Mario Santo Domingo, la Julie's Bicycle, el Fondo de Acción y la Secretaría de Cultura de Bogotá, Ibagué y Riohacha, así como el Ministerio de Cultura, han discutido y construido ideas sobre la incidencia de los procesos culturales en el medio ambiente. Como ya han presentado a nuestros invitados, vamos a dar a cada uno 5 minutos para conocer un poco más a fondo su trabajo. Tiene la palabra Carolina Urrutia, secretaria de Ambiente de Bogotá. Adelante, Carolina, por favor.
Lo que estamos haciendo en Bogotá es hacer un esfuerzo en esta administración por poner el medio ambiente en el centro de la conversación. Llevamos el pasado año y medio poniendo un poco al día a la ciudad en el pensamiento ambiental, no solamente desde la Secretaría y el sector ambiental, sino, como queda claro en este tema y por el compromiso de sus líderes con el tema, también desde el sector cultura, desde el sector salud, es decir, la visión que nos imprime la alcaldesa de Bogotá de la importancia del medio ambiente y el cambio climático, afortunadamente ha permeado a toda la alcaldía. En términos quizás de lo más prioritario, en el último año y medio hemos tenido la oportunidad de proponerle a Bogotá un plan de acción climática, un instrumento que no tenía desde hace varios años y que le imprime, digamos, le pone una senda, una ruta a la ciudad para llegar a la carbono neutralidad en 2050 y para disminuir en 50% sus emisiones de gases de efecto invernadero para el 2030. Esta senda incluye esfuerzos de todos los sectores. Hacemos énfasis mucho en los compromisos que adquirimos desde el sector público, no solamente en la producción de política pública, sino también a través del ejemplo, demostrar que las transiciones energéticas, las transiciones productivas y en general la sostenibilidad es absolutamente posible en la realidad actual. Por eso ha sido tan interesante ir conociendo las iniciativas que tiene el sector cultura y puntualmente IDARTES, no solamente en la creación de espacios como estos, para pensar y discutir el papel
Recording in progress.
Tan ricos y que tiene, por ejemplo, una parte muy importante la ciudad, pero también en la producción de otros bienes y servicios que son sostenibles. Y por supuesto, un tema que
Sustainable different services. And of course, air quality. Unfortunately, in Bogota, we have over 2,000 deaths per year related to air quality. This gives us an additional sense of urgency to address how we move around and how we address our daily life, including mobility and how we use our household appliances. So that's where we're working at the Secretary of the Environment, an area where the participation of everyone is welcome. And because we're suggesting a territorial arrangement plan that gives us an idea of how the city will be for the next 12 years, removing space from vehicles and carbon-based energy production and giving more space for green areas. Of course, this sounds really bold, very daring, but it's the only viable option within this climate emergency. Thank you, Dr. Urrutia. Now I'll give the floor to Gabriela Melitsko. 5 minutes, please. Yeah, thank you, Ramiro. I'm very pleased to be here with you. I'm always learning new things about Bogota. In Julius Bicycle, we've been working since last year. Julius Bicycle is an international organization based in the UK, in London. We work with the cultural sector, promoting low carbon emission measures, suggesting climate policies in the cultural sector, and working with solutions and principles based on ecosystemic elements, and also addressing dialogues in terms of environmental justice worldwide. We work in many areas, as I was telling you. We work on performance art. Citizen culture, and research actions. This surely connects with learning through for a green transition in order to fulfill these commitments in the long term. We also highlight the participation of indigenous peoples as experts in environment protection, since they have historically faced very difficult situations. The support to social and cultural rights and the joint creation of policies stand out as necessary for a proper climate policy. And finally, we highlighted the need for an open conversation on these global topics, and in that sense, to localize the information for the Colombian scenario and being sensitive in language and visual aesthetics. There's also a need to design the networks and forums to connect artists, art, and culture. It has been a great coincidence that we held this roundtable in Colombia last month, and now we have the chance to continue conversating. Thank you.
Thank you very much to Melitsko, CEO of Creative Green from Julie Bicycles. I would like to pass the floor to Alfredo Corredor, Director of Ibagué Musical Sostenible. I'm having a little trouble with my connection. I'm so sorry, I apologize myself. But the first thing I want to say is that in Spanish, we should talk about sustainability because there is a huge difference between sustainable development and sustainability. Having said that, I would like to start saying this. So let's go to the previous one first. So thank you very much. First thing I want to mention here is Ibagué Musical Sostenible. It is a concept that has been developed by Parmo Savers based on the SDGs and sustainability, first of all, also give upward, and the principles developed by the Sustainable Tourism Council. So the thing that we wanted to do in Ibagué City from music and dance would become spreaders of sustainability. So this is a very good figure of what our project means, not only for Ibagué, but also for Colombia. And our vision is local to transform and then go into the international sphere. So what is the justification of this, or why this is coming from? In Ibagué, we have a high level of unemployment, in particular in the youth from 18 to 24 years old. And we ask ourselves, what's happening here? And we saw that the level of unemployment and inequality, it's permanent. They have low income, in particular for the musicians. And we made an analysis and we saw that the solution will be in the sustainable tourism, foster in the culture and the environment. So we want to promote sustainability as the way of living in the city, seeing this not only from the environment itself, but also the social sphere, the culture sphere, and the economy, of course. So, and our vision is that in 2022, Ibagué will be recognized as a sustainable city from the music and nature. The main objective here was to create a group of people and institutions that will be working with this vision, and we have been able to achieve so. We have three main elements that we find here in our strategy. First of all, we need to talk about culture as a lifestyle. It's not like an expression, but we're talking about behaviors where everybody will be understanding the planet has a limit, a threshold, and some needs that we need to protect, and we need to protect it because we're running out of some of these resources. In this way, we are developing different activities and strategic alliances in terms of education. In the middle, we have music, which is the key element that makes this heartbeat. Let's say it's in the core of this initiative. And on the right, you can see everything that has to do with raising the awareness about the relevance of the sustainable tourism and how can we see the future from this perspective. How can we generate value change here that would generate different employment opportunities and preserving not only the environment, but also everything that is related to culture, from our department, and Colombia, and then the world. So our vision has 3 pillars. The first one is to show why sustainability is important. We needed to raise awareness about this. Secondly, we wanted to invite to have a public policy related to sustainability and the SDGs, so we can see that like in a tangible manner. So we've been working with the Secretary of Culture of Ibagué City. And at the moment, we're raising the right questions. We're asking the artists, the dancers, the musicians, everybody that is involved in this culture ecosystem. How can we make culture this transformative environment? Not just to entertain people, but how can we transform our lifestyle in Ibagué? And also, we want to help Ibagué become a cultural district in Colombia. So you can see here our partners. Little by little, our network has been growing, and later on you will see this. To develop different of the elements that the city will need, Ibagué Musical Sostenible, we have created 3 products so far. First one is IMES. This is an app, first one in the world that would promote events, music events, dance events, culture events that would be handled in a sustainable way. So initially, we are sharing everything that is happening in the city, in the cultural sphere, but in the near future, we need to show how they are running their events in a sustainable way to be included in the schedule. So this works in the Android and iOS platforms and from a PC. And it could be checked in any browser. And the main purpose is to show Ibagué at a global scale. So the app, you could see the information in different languages. Next one, please. Next product is sustainable culture. So what is the main point here is to raise awareness around sustainability and how are we having processes in the city that are developing this concept. So this is this program core. So is to relate the different contents that we have in terms of sustainable development and to see how the city is in the midst of all of this. And the other element is the methodology to develop sustainable events. So we shouldn't be just telling you need to do this, but we need to help them to know how to do it. So we have made an adaptation for music and dance events, showing 4 big groups of KPIs in terms of sustainability for culture, environment, social, and economy. So then you have a tool where the people can check if their events and their process is sustainable or not. This one, this vision and this methodology is available for the country, and mainly we're working in Ibagué, but it can be applied anywhere else. Bear in mind that sustainability is not only a concept that needs to be understood. We just want to link the whole community, explaining them what is the SDG and explaining them what is the sustainable vision that we have. So we need to have a long-term perspective. How are we taking care of the environment? We have some human needs, but we need to do that in a better way without affecting or impacting the planet. If we have a better way of working together, acknowledging ourselves not as individuals, but as a community that is protecting their planet and that is connected with the rest of the creation that God has given us. So here we have an Escena group. This is what you see here. They are holding the SDGs in their hands, and they have built this vision, this concept around their dance process, and in Escena started living through each one of this, where they are having sustainability as their lifestyle. So we are in the challenge number 6, which is to respect the awareness about the use of potable water. So the challenge is to take a shower in less than 3 minutes during the contrabandista song. So they are understanding why process like Memoria de Rio, which is a beautiful performance that will be launched precisely next year, hopefully 9th of April, nighttime. We are going to have Memorias del Rio from a sustainable process to Julio Mario Santo Domingo theater. So that's one of the biggest achievements we have had so far. And we want this group to become an ambassador for the SDGs from Colombia, from Ibagué to the world. Basically, that's my presentation. Thank you very much. I would like to pass the floor to Leonardo Andrés Bueno Castellanos. He supports the group of promotion and competitiveness of the green business in the Ministry of Environment and Sustainable Development. Please, Leonardo, the floor is yours. So for starters, I want to give you a little bit of history here in terms of public policies. So everything that is related to green policies comes from the policy that was issued in 2010 by the national government. And the main purpose here is to help change towards the pattern of consumption within a sustainable framework. So we wanted to foster and encourage green business in the country. So in 2011, when we had a restructure of the Ministry of Environment, we created this Office of Green Business as part of the ministry. There we start working on this framework so we can state clearly what is a green business in the country, because we used to have some precedents. We used to talk about green markets, but now we are moving towards green businesses. So in 2014, we had this plan issue, which has been our guideline, and there we have the tools to foster and encourage the green business in the country. And to summarize this, I think that our purpose are 3. First, we want to identify what is the offer that we have of green business. Then, how can we help them? How can we contact them? And third, and I think is the most relevant, how can we strengthen the offer or the portfolio that we have in the sector? So they want to produce in a different way within a market that it is not giving any sort of benefits or conditions for encouraging the sustainable production. The concepts that we have around here is what is that green business? So here we would identify it from 4 main characteristics. First of all, it needs to be a business. It might be quite logical, but we want to identify here something that is offering a product or a service into the market. So the first condition that we need to fulfill, we know that there are some sustainable activities that are not focused on commercialization. They could be just self-consumption or things like that. So that's where we're going to focus on everything that are business, so we can help the new businesses that are arising in the country. Then the second characteristic that we have here and what makes us different is that the business should have a positive impact in the environment. So it's not only about reducing through best practices the bad effects that we can say, but we should have a positive impact over in the environment. And third, we are talking about a comprehensive sustainability. So we are not just identifying the best practices from the environment, but we want to see it from the economy and the social perspective. So we think that the green business environment is very important, is the DNA. But if I have the best practices, I need to have a good practices also in terms of the economy. And if I don't do that, then it might disappear quite soon and all the effort will be wasted. Likewise, in terms of the social sphere. So we need to be very mindful of the social responsibility that each business has, as we were talking before. So we need to have good practices with the employees and the value chain, how does it related with the customer, with the supplier, and to the exterior, how is related to the community. And lastly, the fourth characteristic is that they have a cycle that is quite related with the circular economy models. So how can we change these patterns of traditional production, linear production, for a model that will be circular, where everything will be taken once again once the cycle has been completed. That is the concept as a whole. We have to find some activities that can be considered with positive impact, and up to the extent that we can identify that, we can have 12 criteria to understand how green is this green business, and we move a little bit farther. So we want to help them have an improvement plan so they can maintain themselves within the market and become quite appealing business for the rest. So what have we done so far? We have 3,070 producers that have been verified as green business in different spheres. Mainly we have the biocommerce sector, where tourism is quite strong, is about 15%. That what we have in the country with all this ecotourism activities like trekking. It depends on the territory where you're going to develop this. Also, we have the use of other resources that are not made from wood, like in the Pacific Orinoquia, to generate and add value from native fruits. So we have seen some ice creams with these flavors and things that are quite interesting, and we're acknowledging there. Also using nature fibers to use handcrafts, and we exalt our tradition in each one of the regions. Also, agriculture has a lot of green business here in the primary sector, where we have organic system free of chemical products, and also with their process. We have seen that many producers, for example, coffee growers, would acknowledge that selling their crops to the federation won't give any add value. So they are becoming a sort of independent companies. They're having their own brands. And we can see that in Huila, we have very good coffee lands, and that has been reflected in new businesses and new brands that are taking advantage of producing and generating these green businesses. Also, using the waste, like all these organic disposals have become fertilizers. They have been becoming substitutes for other products, basically plastic. So we have seen a lot of innovation for clothing or everything that goes around fashion would be moving towards recycled plastic and recycled woods as well. So we are reducing what is going to the waste disposal as well. So they have a second chance to do something. We have a lot of challenges, of course. Our green businesses nowadays are small enterprises and the rural areas, and we need to work a lot to be able to bring them to different markets so they can scale up. We have big goals for 2030 in line with the 2030 agenda and the SDGs and our policy of green growth. So we hope to have 2,000 green business by then. Big challenge. We will need to grow 1,000 green business per year, but we think that we can do so. I would like to create a space for some questions. Some answers have been already given, but I would like to have this significant suggestion from Alfredo Corredor that culture is a transformation mean. Also, the need that our cultural institutions will be committed in the SDGs implementation. And also I have something that is very important, which is sustainability needs to be comprehensive in the green businesses. Understanding this and the relevance of linking all the arts initiatives and sustainability with the development of a legal framework that would be supporting them for all the cultural institutions. What guidelines should we have to plan these public policies in arts and sustainability? I would pass the floor in the same order that we have had. So please, I would like to pass to the Secretary of Environment. Please let's be short and sweet in our comments. Thank you.
Sustainability, thought from the climate emergency standpoint, we need to think about enabling factors. And I think we can all agree, we have been over-regulating these aspects. And in fact, what we have learned during these 11 years about doing green businesses is to generate conditions where things are more simple. I believe that incentives for cultural industries to be more sustainable and to have environmental branding is connected to their sector. This industry is no stranger to these values and these principles. In many senses, when we think about transforming the cultural sector in Bogota, we want, for example, renovating cultural facilities to be easier, or to promote water recycling, or to have more simple elements in tenders to remove points from single-use plastics. I think that specifically in Colombia, this is highly regulated, and we need a deregulation agenda precisely for a healthy bioeconomy. Culturally, we have preserved a scheme of incentives and voluntary goals, and I think that's how it should be, not just imposing fixed goals. As a city, as a government, we do have our certain goals that the cultural sector should contribute to according to specific realities, but beyond that, telling them that 2 years from now they should only work with renewable energies. Well, we need to be more sensitive to the economic reality that return to their activities or to theaters. I believe the mistake is setting goals or agendas that cannot be fulfilled. In order to show results, everyone should know what they can comply with or what goals they can meet. I think that the agenda should be voluntary. And the message from Ibagué is quite clear. One thing is transforming how we operate, how our facilities work, how the events work, the criteria, how do we get to carbon neutrality. Are we going to plant new forests in our mountains in order to compensate for our damages of an event? I still can't think of a mass event like Rock al Parque, a rock festival with fully renewable energies. I still can't wrap my head around that. But we need to incentivize the use of these energies. The other thing is, how can creators, you guys, artists, can include these content? We from the public administration, we're very boring. Our messages, our pedagogical messages always fall short because they're boring. We need the culture sector to play a more active role, a less politically correct role, and with a more significant impact than the one that we can have while trying to convince our society to transform. That second part, especially, should be a completely voluntary initiative. What if we say that of all the contests that Arte supports, 30% should have environmental content? No, let creativity do their own thing, because they can actually contribute to the transformation. We have Artbo and their contents and the amount of pieces that are focused on the urgency of transforming towards sustainability. Thank you, Dr. Urrutia. I would like to point out two topics that are of key importance. First of all, the cultural sector should be fully convinced and belligerent in their environmental commitments, and also possibility of drafting an agenda that can be met or accomplished. Now, Gabriela Melitsko, go ahead. Thank you, Ramiro. Yeah, I believe that regulation is very specific for each country. Environmental regulations are relatively new, and they demand constant revision, such as in the UK, where there's a lot of regulations in the energy aspect that have been modified depending on the experience and as a result of their own implementations. As for the relationship between culture and environment, I believe that one of the key topics is engaging the sector and those who have been affected by these problems. On the other hand, setting an environment for problem solving. I believe that this is a key topic. Addressing the problems and focusing on solutions from very different standpoints and from the standpoint of different actors. Either decision makers as well as all stakeholders. And this also relates to generating integrated solutions. For example, in our everyday work of promoting material reuse, usually what theaters tell us is that we don't have space to store it. We don't have storage space. We need infrastructure. If we want to use renewable energy, well, we need access to credit loans. We need to come up with a business model including these energy sources. So the need for agreed integrated solutions of infrastructure and regeneration between the government, private sector, innovators, and culture. We always focus on recovering the relationship between all stakeholders, all actors in the system. We view this as an ecosystem, and we focus on relationships because relationships are quite broken, actually. It's very difficult to understand value chains, which are so globalized. Where do materials come from? Where does energy come from? We need to reintegrate those relationships between what's local, national, regional, and how they connect with the global. So I believe those are the topics to be considered. And beyond the regulations, we think that it's also important to focus on incentives and to persuade with actual arguments. As our colleague was just saying, to bring the feelings, the emotion, seduction, the desire to do that all these environmental topics can bring in order to transform and to improve. And also to communicate these new models, which usually collide with the current situation of how we use natural resources. And that'll be it so far. Thank you, Graciela. I'm sorry for mistaking your name. That's a quite interesting topic, the part of integrated solutions and these incentives that can lead our cultural institutions to this transformation. Alfredo Corredor, go ahead. Thank you. First of all, I would like us to think about what would we do in a war economy, an economy with scarcity. We should make the best use of our resources. We must consider that the planet is being subject to great pressure, not only environmentally, but also socially and economically. And we need to respond with diversity to these phenomena. People need to understand that this is not just a matter of the government or the state, it's a personal matter, a personal survival. Now, how do we use art as a mechanism for transformation? I think this must be inclusive. People need to understand that it's not just a matter of others, but of everyone. And surely that creativity that characterizes artists will give rise to very interesting solutions. The other thing that I believe should be done from public policy is to engage people via education, because sustainability is a cultural topic and also a responsibility or accountability. It's a multidimensional issue. You're also mentioning value chains. Usually, art is considered as an element for enjoyment or aesthetics. But if we truly believe that it can be transforming, then we would think differently. The private sector has understood that tourism is an alternative for a city that didn't have value chains or representative or stable cultural sectors. Hence, I believe that these new regulations issued to regulate or to promote the use of renewable energies should involve arts. For example, they're going to give certain benefits for those importing more energy efficient or friendly, environmental friendly elements. They should be transferred to arts. Julio Maret Santo Domingo Theater started a transformation, and perhaps it could have been quicker if should they have received the subsidies or the benefits that the government is giving for those who are implementing sustainability or the use of sustainable energies. Another important thing is to consider that sustainability includes things as simple as the following. For example, when you go to a live event, people tell you, hey, if a catastrophe happens, an earthquake, for example, the exits to ensure everyone's quality of life is go right and find such place. Setting up those healthy environments are things that just entail applying common sense, and they are not costly at all. Thank you. Thank you, Alfredo. Now I'll give the floor to Leonardo Andrés Bueno Castellanos. Leonardo, go ahead. Thank you, Ramiro. I think we need to consider several elements. In green businesses, a successful element in the implementation of this strategy, and in the Colombian sector, was the regionalization component. We have been implementing this program by regions with our technical groups, with a specific purpose beyond governance, of course, which is recognizing the potential of each region regarding biodiversity to generate environmentally friendly products. We must acknowledge those differences. It's very different to talk about green businesses in Bogota, where there's a lot of reuse and new trends, with a positive impact, as opposed to doing it in the department of Chocó, where there's a huge potential in forest aspects, for example, or in the Quindío guava trees. On reducing the nest entails culture and education of consumers in order to come up with a proper decision-making process. There's this myth, for me it's a myth, that sustainable is more expensive. For example, ecologic dish soap is thought as more expensive, but we need to think beyond the price and the quality of the products, and the quality of green businesses is very good. Price is the differentiator for us as consumers. So we're trying to position this stamp, this seal of green businesses in products, so that consumers can make decisions in a better way, not only focusing on price, but understanding that there's a story behind a product or a service. There's also an adaptability component to the public sector. Usually the public sector goes at a slower pace than reality. At the national level or the policymaking sector, we need to carry out an analysis and a thought process. But new trends come up every day with new products and services with a positive environmental impact. And finally, we have seen that there's a need for close coordination between institutions with common goals. We have that generated a methodology for green startups and green undertakings, including green business criteria. We were very clever in that sense. We took existing methodologies and adapted them. This has allowed us to coordinate with entities such as SENA, who have experiences in adapting this type of businesses, or universities with their entrepreneurial centers. This, of course, requires additional processes, developing a more robust business model, and where am I headed to return these resources?
Thank you to Leonardo's intervention. But now that you have mentioned this transformation that we have done in Teatro Mayor, I would like to give a couple of details so we can see all the ideas of our theater within the fulfillment of different SDGs. And for this reason, for example, in terms of the lighting on the stage and the general lighting that we have replaced in the last few years everything to the LED bulbs. So that has represented a significant energy saving. In the whole Julio Mario Santo Domingo Center, we have done, along with the library, a very deep work in terms of the use and how do we save water. So we have been working to have rainwater so we can use that for our gardens and so on. And also when we talk about recycling, so we have been very cautious with this. I'm going to pass on this to the successful stories, right? In this case, national level. So do you have any experience on the international sphere? How can we adapt all these public policies that you have had in terms of sustainability that you have been able to implement in other countries in our Colombian case? So I will pass the floor in the same order. Carolina Urrutia, Secretary of Environment in Bogotá. Well, with Ramiro, I feel that the opera is going to start with his voice, right? I'm very used to hearing him. So I think we have many good examples in terms of actually in cities that have quite active cultural life, not only in terms of how do they operate, but also, and to be honest, being a little bit humble, I think that we are also leaders here in Bogotá. And the idea is that we'll be scenarios to encounter the nature. So we have had the different open arenas, but we have seen more and more how are we trying to connect with the environment in the cities. I think in terms of art pieces, I wouldn't be the expert on this, but I have been seeing, as Juan Manuel was saying, these artists that are moving closer, not only to our past in terms of the armed conflict, but also to see the relevance of the nature in our identity as a country. And I think this is very important when we're talking about, in reality, how can we internalize taking care of the environment and climate change. So we need to rescue the relevance that nature has for Colombians. And I have to be very honest that I have been quite accepting of the role of the government. I think that we are not very good to have different narratives, and we tend to be quite boring. Also, I think that when bureaucracy touches a business plan, then the results are terrible. So we have been trying to ensure that we're closing the gap. And I also think the examples that we have in these interactions between public policy and artistic creation can be a little bit tricky, and also how we are transforming our sector. I think there are a couple of good examples that come from out of the routine that we have. To tell a little bit, for example, in the libraries, for example, day by day life in a city, we should have a greater relationship between culture and arts. But I'm sure that my other colleagues in the panel would share more interesting things. Thank you, Carolina. I would like to pass the floor to Graciela. Yes. How difficult to choose one single experience or just a few. I'm quite impressed by all the work that you've been doing in Bogota. I want to say this. I think that you are leaders in our region, and we have been seeing more and more experiences, and I think that we need to communicate these experiences. We should enhance those, and I think that the public policy role is key here to amplify the experiences that are available. I will tell you quite short. In London, 2007, they had the first action plan in terms of climate change. The creative sector wasn't involved in doing this climate change plan. They have different municipalities there that are part of London region. So it was the start of Julie's Bicycle, and we said, okay, we want to be part of this. Cultural sector is important. We want to have our own voice here, but we need to understand a little bit better what is the environmental impact of our sector. So they suggest to have these guidelines in each one of the areas. Here I have the theater one, which I think is quite brilliant. But it wasn't only the guidelines. There were a research process where we had the participation of many, where we went to interview the different performers that we had in different scenarios, and we created steering boards, these commissions. I'm so sorry if my Spanish is a little bit rusty, because I am always thinking in English, but we also create these committees to have this research, and then we issued the results that they would include an analysis of the impact, but also the solutions. How can we work together? That was the beginning of Julie's Bicycle. Then in 2010, the National Arts Council from England, they said, we want to put into practice all of these recommendations. And we start working with synergy with this council, which were the main sponsor of the public art. And the 800 organization. In 2021, we have 800 organizations that receive funding by this council. And they made a environmental policy, an action plan, and every year they would inform their KPIs, how they have progress over in each one of them through a data system that was created in Julie's Bicycle. So this is a program from Julie's Bicycle with the Arts Council from England. And every year we have an annual report where we can see the impact of what we have done. From there, we also started, I think 2-3 years ago, we said this is not enough. We need to speed up the innovation. So 2 projects were created with the council, and one specifically for energy, because we found that in all these articles or all these reports, we found that about 60 or 50 organizations have the biggest footprint. So we try to work in terms of energy in this high impact organization. So we'll launch this program for all the organizations that would like to speed up their innovation in a specific area. So Julie's Bicycle supports with knowledge, training, research, these innovation clusters that have been created, that they want to work together in something in particular. And this reality has given a lot of progress, and I want to invite you all to look for these reports that we have. And briefly, I would like to mention Amsterdam. 2015, they set as a goal to reduce 20% of their emission for 2020. And they said, we want that the cultural sector will be part of this. So what will we do will be to sponsor the energetic audits and then give them a loan. So these energetic audits work well, but then the organization found that it was very hard to find this loan. So initially, instead of a loan, it became a benefit, and progressively, we were trying to see that this saving should sponsor future action. And the last thing I want to mention is all this work of co-design that started with the Labuchon in Poland, where we have a work over public area, and we have a collaborative work here designing the public policies with the citizens. Very interesting. If you have the chance, it will be good to check that out. But I could keep going, but I will stop right here. Thank you very much, Graciela. We're going to follow up on these experiences that you have shared with us. Alfredo, please. Many of the process as Julie's bicycles have been quite inspiring for us. We have Lollapalooza, and there are some initiatives in the world, from the music, from dance, where we can see a transformation. I think this is the key word that I want to have here. I think that we haven't been conscious about the impact that art represents or culture represents, how powerful are the messages that we're given. Someone that will be on a stage and that would be saying that we need to be conscious about the waste and everything. It's a big opportunity that we have in our hands. So from every performance could become in a transformative element. in Julio Mario Santo Domingo, the space that they've created for this performance that is related to sustainability is sending a very interesting message, clear message. And I think it could be very interesting. I would invite you to have the possibility on the 9th of April. I hope that everybody that is part of this meeting will be part of that. It will be very interesting to have a presentation of how you have transformed all the lighting on your stage, and also not only that you did that, trying to walk towards the sustainability path, but that gave you savings and was translated also into having a sustainable operation and conscious operation, not only for Colombia, but also as an example for the world. This is one of the achievements that we should showcase and like show the results. And how can you see in these results all the challenges that you face, but all the good results that you have received and how you have generated value. Thank you very much. Thank you, Alfredo. Just to add on what you have said in terms of our project, pandemic deaccelerated a process that we had of installation over the roof, different solar panels that would reduce 40% of the consumption. That would be done as soon as we can find funding. So Leonardo, please. Thank you. Okay, so we have different examples around the world in terms of sustainability, and I think that it has been a learning curve. And I would say that this identification part that I was saying is part of this, to acknowledge what's happening around the world. And from what in the first intervention was said, Colombia in terms of sustainability could be a leader in terms of the legal framework and governance that we have. There are many countries that come and understand how the system has been conceived, the institutions that we have. Sometimes we fall short when we talk about implementation, but the concept itself is quite well recognized around the world, where we have had the chance maybe with Mesoamerican countries and other countries in the region. We are recognized as leaders here and green business as well. So that has been very interesting, and I think that we are well recognized as leaders in this sphere in terms of the positive environmental impact that we are aiming to have. And I think it's very important and very needed to move into the action. So I think that we have big challenges as a country. We have a lot of things to show in our legal framework, which is quite robust. How we using the resources, it becomes quite complex. For us, that someone would be using using a resource within the legal framework. So we need to be very careful. So the producers that are running their activities in a sustainable way, we have seen that there are two pathways. One, whether you formalize this, or then we won't be within the legal framework that we have created. So we have a lot of challenges from the institutions to strengthen the skills from all the authorities that are part of the national environmental system, with the different roles that they have that are sometimes quite complex. Like on the first instance, I would like to highlight in this. And also there are many experiences around the world. For example, having a fee by environmental services. That's something that's happening in our country, everything that is related with conservation. We are aware that there are some examples like in Costa Rica and Mexico where they have that and have very good experiences over this field. Thank you very much, Leonardo. My mic was off. My takeaway from your intervention, Leonardo, is we are an example in terms of the legal framework for the environmental awareness and care. And I think that UNESCO has acknowledged Colombia as one of the countries that has a very good legal framework. The thing is that we fall short when we implement it or when we develop that. But we have done good things in the creation 697. They're quite complex, so the institutions could actually follow it. Okay, we have a couple of minutes left, and this last words will take us to a question. What's the core that has to do with every policy, because it's also a right from the different sectors to be part in the design of the policies that would affect them. For this reason, how can you establish efficient links between the responsible of the design and the implementation of the public policy and the cultural sector to give solutions that would take into account art and environment? We will keep the same order. So please, Ms. Secretary.
Coming back to those topics where Colombia has been a leader and then lagging a little bit, I believe that the regulatory framework of environmental regulation started really well, but then we lost our way, and we had disastrous results for our environmental leaders. Colombia is a country where more environmental leaders are killed, and it has to do with the fact that causes and visibility of them and people are left aside. Now, we are making efforts to listen to other sectors, but we're also making efforts on not being as precise as to step on someone else's toes. We do know that we want to have a transformation of all public buildings, and we need to sit down with the public cultural sector in order to figure out which buildings or which constructions have the best potential to participate, rather than just saying, hey, culture, you guys need to contribute with 3% of greenhouse effect emission reduction. We need a different approach, probably like the ministry has had to do, to provide assistance. We have an increasing amount of organizations such as Julie's Bicycle, which are renowned, which are world renowned. And we do have a lot of consultancy companies and advisors who can directly participate in designing the specific plans for each transformation in order to secure feedback between public policy and how it's going to be complied with. But there's an additional task. Ramiro was talking about the transformation of drama, of theaters. It's quite simple. Renewable energies, recycling water, LED bulbs. This is like the simplest and most available menu. Of course, there's another thing when we talk about new buildings, etc. But there's a missing part, and it's how do we hold these conversations with entrepreneurs and other private actors in this culture chain in the country. These conversations need to happen, and unfortunately, the production of public policy, which is always in a rush, since we have just 4 years to do our things, we're always in a rush to leave our legacy. But we need to take our time to hold this conversation and acknowledge and understand the concerns of each sector. We're currently talking about the POT, the Territorial Organization Plan, which requires a lot of conversations and sharing with the society. You start to understand different problems, despite the fact that I've had 20 years experience in this. So we still need this little part, Ramiro. It's quite interesting to try to figure out how can we do it, not only in spaces like this one, but also in more fluent conversations with drama entrepreneurs. What are their fears when facing this agenda, and how we can ensure that the public policies will not have a negative effect, an additional negative effect. Thank you, Carolina. I would like to highlight this will, the desire that you have just expressed, the desire to have a feedback with the theater, the drama sector, and these vasa comunicans. To share communication. The complexity is very significant in Colombia. It doesn't happen in many other cities where public infrastructure has, with time, been given to cultural organizations. And there's a very important step in the construction of democracy and the spaces for culture and freedom. This entails a significant complexity in sustainability, because these are facilities that used to be an old house, a garage, that need to be transformed into spaces for the arts. About a decade ago, a law was enacted, the Law for Public Shows, which created a fund with resources that should be allocated to improve the conditions of these facilities and have brought a very important change. So it's quite a joy to hear your words, how to build a public policy considering this singularity or these complex circumstances of our own sector. Graciela. Yeah, I believe participation is key, as Carolina was saying. Bringing these permanent scenarios, new tools, technological tools, and the tools in social communication. And we're constantly more hyper-communicated globally. I'm an optimist. We are working a lot on providing more visibility to the cultural sector regarding environmental issues at the national and global policy level. That was the purpose of this year's research. And we're starting to see how we're giving rise to new conversations in countries that usually were not involved in this conversation. I think this will give the sector more visibility, more resources, more training, more updates, more conversations, and more exchange. Thus, I believe that we're starting to see a key and more powerful movement addressing climate issues and SDGs. So we need to continue delving more into these coincidences and working on these network structures. That's my final thought on this. And I hope that we can continue to communicate after the Glasgow Convention, where we'll be talking about CO2 and other greenhouse effect emissions, because we're going to be reviewing the results on the commitments undertaken in Paris. So this year is very important, and we need to focus on reducing emissions by half by year 2030. It's a very important challenge, a very big challenge, but it has very positive aspects for social transformation. Thank you very much. Thank you, Graciela. I think that's the challenge as the Chilean national anthem. We will deliver. Alfredo, you have the floor. Yes, as Graciela was saying, bringing wills together is very important. And it's very important to have positive things to rescue. In many occasions, you go to events and you talk about things, but they're just left in the air or on paper, but nothing happens. It's important to establish or to set up teamwork in this as a result of this event. We need to continue receiving support for these initiatives that include sustainability. I would like to invite you to continue working and providing support and to transform your scenarios into sustainable facilities. I also want you to consider or take into account regions. We need to go from local and regional to global. So whatever you need from the city of Ibagué, we're looking forward to participate, and you're always welcome here. We need you to be a channel to communicate what we're doing here during the last 2 years. And usually there's not enough time, but we need to take actions in order to tackle the threat of global change or global warming. So hopefully we can take action and generate this sustainability view. This should be our roadmap for all of us as a human civilization, so we can continue living on this planet. Thank you. Thank you, Alfredo. I would like to say that the Julio Mario Santo Domingo Theater is a public institution of the mayor's office and the Artes. And finally, I would like to give the floor to Leonardo Andrés Bueno. I have just 2 thoughts and an invitation. Yeah, first of all, participation is key. It started from the law that created the national environmental system. And I think that this sector has suffered it a lot. It has learned a lot. And participating is key. This process has to go hand in hand with the communities. It's there's no use to bring foreign labor, for example, into our region because the region will not embrace and not appropriate a change. Secondly, culture, environmental culture and environmental education. Not only education, we need to create a culture in order to have a generational change in the long term. And finally, I want to invite you to the 9th BioExpo fair. It's a fair specialized in green businesses in Medellin, in the Botanical Garden, November 18th. We're also having an academic agenda, rounds for solutions with government entities in order to provide
Recording in progress. Doctor en Sociología de la Cultura de la Universidad de Valencia, licenciado en las Políticas Culturales por la Universidad de Barcelona, magíster en Gestión Cultural por la Universidad de Barcelona y diplomado en Estudios Avanzados en Derecho de la Cultura por la UNED en Madrid. En la actualidad es director ejecutivo de Cultura Link, consultoría en cultura y comunicación, y recientemente fue elegido para integrar el pool de expertos de la Comisión Europea. Ha creado y para asesorar a equipos responsables de diseñar candidaturas a capital europea de la cultura o de implementar los programas de las ciudades seleccionadas. Agradecemos a todos los ciudadanos, además, que se han unido a los paneles y las charlas magistrales en el segundo Foro Internacional Respira el Arte. Los invitamos a los conciertos, obras de teatro y todas las actividades que tenemos, además, a todos los laboratorios en los distintos escenarios. Además, toda la semana tendremos distintos eventos para que estén todos muy pendientes en nuestros escenarios de Bogotá, Respira el Arte, con Latin Latas, en la Media Torta también estaremos con Herencia de Timbiquí, en el Teatro Jorge Eliezer Gaitán y otros eventos, por supuesto, en el Planetario Distrital, los escenarios móviles y mucho más. Toda la información ustedes la pueden encontrar y revisar en el Foro el Arte 2021 y en las redes sociales de todos nuestros escenarios. Recording in progress.
Aso San Diego es una asociación cívica. Aso San Diego es una asociación cívica gremial con el propósito que fue fundada en 1900 hacer las tareas en el espacio público que se presentan en este entorno del Centro Internacional de Bogotá. Estamos trabajando en temas importantes en temas de sostenibilidad, como las redes de recolección de residuos especiales. Nosotros tenemos 3 redes actualmente que estamos trabajando. La primera es la red de recolección de residuos eléctricos y electrónicos. Tenemos otras 2 redes de recolección que tienen que ver con los temas de residuos orgánicos, aceites usados. Para esto nosotros tenemos también una red, un proveedor que hace la recolección en varias empresas que están afiliadas aquí a San Diego, y con eso se genera un compost, un nivelador de suelos que nos permite digamos, cuidar esa cobertura vegetal del Centro Internacional. Y por último tenemos una red de recolección de residuos aprovechables, esto digamos en conjunto o en alianza a las comunidades de recicladores de la zona que están trabajando, haciendo una tarea muy juiciosa con los edificios y las copropiedades para hacer una disposición adecuada de estos residuos.
Pasar a la pantalla el texto.
Nosotros desde San Diego creemos fielmente que el entorno físico que rodea las copropiedades, los edificios, es muy importante porque nosotros creemos que tú puedes tener tu casa de la puerta hacia adentro en las mejores condiciones, pero si no tienes un entorno adecuado de la puerta hacia afuera, pues realmente tu propiedad va a estar deteriorada, se va a desvalorizar. Entonces yo creo que en eso se basa, digamos, el urbanismo sostenible, poder tener un equilibrio de todos los elementos que actúan en el espacio público, que es donde finalmente interactuamos todos, donde todos participamos, donde todos vivimos, donde todos estamos. Ese espacio público, digamos, como lo dice. Creo que esa es como la clave del asunto, donde no podemos pensar únicamente de la puerta de nuestros ciudadanos, sino tenemos que tener una acción responsable sobre nuestro entorno inmediato, de la puerta de nuestros edificios, de nuestras propiedades, de nuestras casas, hacia afuera. Y eso es un poco lo que hace Sostenible.
Bueno, los niños en este espacio han tenido un aporte muy especial.
Primero que su voz es central en este lugar. Se da todo el espacio para que ellos puedan opinar, proponer, y han realizado realmente propuestas muy interesantes. Una de ellas es que para ellos es importantísimo poder generar un concierto, poder generar obras que puedan verlas con sus mascotas. Entonces se preguntaban por qué uno va a un teatro y no puede llevar a su gato o a su perro, o por qué no puede llevar, no sé, a la tortuga. Entonces nos hacen pensar con esa pregunta de cómo empezamos a relacionar arte y animales. Por otra parte también tienen la inquietud los niños del tema de la energía y de poder generar planta solar. Decían, bueno, ¿de qué manera el techo del teatro puede convertirse en un panel solar? Los niños han propuesto acá que debería haber también apiarios, que sería genial en un espacio como estos, donde hay además árboles, donde hay flores, poder analizar y estudiar si pueden existir apiarios, por ejemplo, como parte también del complejo del teatro. También otra idea que generaron era llenar de muchas más plantas y de flores todo el teatro, las paredes, lugares del piso, los bordes, como poder generar como caminitos con las plantas y senderos ecológicos. Con la organización Envolver generamos una alianza en este año que nos permitió hacer un mercado de las aves. Ese mercado de las aves tuvo diferentes propuestas, tuvo pues todo un recorrido a través de productos, valga la redundancia, productores que producen de forma sustentable lo que hacen, ya sea miel de abejas, ya sean alimentos, ya sea pues materiales más artesanales, y que pues están completamente amigables con el medio ambiente. También hubo experiencias artístico-ambientales en el espacio para los niños, para invitarlos a la conciencia del planeta, la conciencia de la energía, del ahorro energético, de la conciencia también de la reutilización y el reciclaje. Y al mismo tiempo también hubo una exposición fotográfica de aves, y pues digamos que eso permitió también, al ver como instalaciones muy distintas en este espacio como con lonas, también al mismo tiempo con pajas, que la gente dijera, ve, ¿qué está ocurriendo en este lugar? Algo está pasando diferente, y realmente logramos tener un flujo de gente visitando el espacio.
¿Puedo empezar ya?
Sí.
Bien, pues buenos días. En mi tierra, Canarias, se dice que es de bien nacido ser agradecido, así que comenzaré agradeciendo a Idartes, a sus aliados, amigos y amigas, el haber contado conmigo para participar en este relevante evento, una segunda edición cuyo nivel de excelencia augura un futuro más que prometedor para el foro. Así que vaya por delante mi enhorabuena. Iré al grano porque el tiempo apremia. Lo que voy a procurar realizar en los próximos 20 minutos, el tiempo asignado por la organización, es una lectura provisional, concentrada y cruzada de cerca de 9 horas de reflexiones y conversaciones protagonizadas por 19 expertos y expertas durante 3 días de intenso trabajo. El resultado es una lectura de autor, ni una memoria ni un acta, es decir, una aproximación personal al tema que nos ha ocupado a lo largo de estas jornadas, a saber, la impostergable transformación del actual modelo energético de los equipamientos culturales de nuestras ciudades, la necesaria normalización de los imperativos de la sostenibilidad en la totalidad de la cadena de valor del conjunto de los procesos creativos que acogen los equipamientos culturales o que se impulsan a partir de ellos, y en tercer lugar, la postulación de los equipamientos culturales como espacios abiertos para el diálogo activo del conjunto de la ciudadanía, la que hace uso de los equipamientos y la que no, para la definición y diseño de anhelos y horizontes compartidos. En el centro de esta triple aproximación a los retos planteados por la posible pregunta ¿qué puede hacer la cultura y el arte para cambiar hábitos de vida, para reverdecer a Bogotá, mitigar el cambio climático y hacer de Bogotá región un modelo de movilidad multimodal, incluyente y sostenible, como propone el Plan de Desarrollo para un nuevo contrato social y ambiental para la Bogotá del siglo XXI, el foro ha situado en el centro de la discusión el papel de los equipamientos culturales urbanos, sus potencialidades y sus déficits, en una perspectiva de cambio del modelo de desarrollo local en términos de mayor eficacia, mayor eficiencia, mayor equidad y mayor sostenibilidad. En mi opinión, esta centralidad otorgada al rol de los equipamientos es todo un acierto del foro. Me explico muy sintéticamente. Pasar de los sueños a la acción, como defiende el jovencísimo, lúcido y admirable ciudadano villetano Francisco Vera, supone repensar la acción pública. En nuestro caso, repensar la acción pública cultural. Y ese proceso de reflexión crítica sobre las limitaciones y agotamientos del paradigma dominante de política cultural es imposible sin un cuestionamiento de las funcionalidades, las características arquitectónicas, las dotaciones técnicas, la financiación, los usos y los modelos de gestión y gobernanza de los equipamientos culturales. Aunque sería forzado intentar establecer una correlación perfecta entre modelos de política cultural y modelos de espacios culturales, sí es posible, sin embargo, afirmar que existe una cierta correspondencia entre un modelo de política cultural y un tipo de equipamiento cultural. Y no puede ser de otro modo. La política cultural se implementa, se materializa, se hace realidad sobre una red física de espacios e infraestructuras que definen sus límites y potencialidades y que supone el elemento fijo a corto y medio plazo. Sus características, en definitiva, delimitan en gran medida la frontera de posibilidades de actuación, impacto y articulación de las políticas culturales. Desde la perspectiva en la que me sitúo y en la que he estado atento a los debates del foro, la redefinición del rol y los modelos de uso y gestión de los espacios culturales, incluyendo de manera preferente su relación con el espacio público y los entornos naturales, artificiales y sociales, deviene en uno de los elementos más importantes en la reconfiguración de las políticas culturales locales y regionales en la próxima década. Dicho de otro modo, y termino, sin cambio en el modelo de equipamientos culturales, no hay cambio de modelo de política cultural. Y sin cambio del modelo de gestión pública de los recursos simbólicos del territorio, es casi impensable pensar en un horizonte más sostenible, más inclusivo y más justo para nuestras comunidades y ciudades. Pero como decía ayer Henry Murain, no hay que machacarse gratuitamente. Aquí ocurren cosas buenas y no partimos de cero. Veamos. Decía el secretario de Cultura, Recreación y Deporte que uno de los retos a los que tendría que responder una acción pública cultural en clave transformadora y sostenible es incorporar al diálogo ciudadano una perspectiva transversal y una perspectiva interdisciplinar. Para lograr objetivos diferentes necesitamos hacer las cosas de otro modo y para ello necesitamos generar conocimiento innovador. Si el análisis de la política cultural se ha de mostrar como un campo dinámico y crítico, es necesario resistir la tentación de presentarlo como integrado por una serie de tradiciones cerradas, autorreferenciales y atemporales. La interdisciplinariedad es la condición para superar la representación unidimensional de una realidad inequívocamente multidimensional. Pues bien, como decía, no partimos de cero. A pesar de que la investigación sobre la política cultural y la red de equipamientos que le da soporte es bastante reciente, desde sus inicios tiene un enfoque multidisciplinar, agrupando a profesionales de diversa procedencia y actividad. En las últimas décadas, la nómina de las ciencias sociales aplicadas a la cultura no deja de aumentar. Así, la economía de la cultura, la sociología de la cultura, la ciencia política, el derecho de la cultura, el urbanismo, los cultural studies, vienen a ampliar las aportaciones y los enfoques pioneros de la historia del arte y de la antropología. Ahora bien, como es sabido, la línea entre el collage y el pastiche es muy delgada, de modo que esta multiplicación de especialidades plantea la necesidad de establecer puentes, claves y pasarelas más o menos armónicas entre las distintas maneras de aproximarnos a la realidad para que la riqueza y profundidad de esta multidisciplinariedad no se vea mermada por la desconexión conceptual. La interdisciplinaridad no puede ser un buffet epistemológico libre donde cada cual puede picotear a su antojo o conveniencia. Con eso avanzamos poco. Aquí se plantean, por lo tanto, retos a nuestros sistemas de conocimiento y, en concreto, a nuestras universidades. Doy un pequeño giro de volante. En otro orden de cosas, pero muy relacionado con lo que acabo de comentar, nuestras universidades van a tener que seguir profundizando en las posibles vías de transferencia social de conocimiento. Es una asignatura, por lo general, insatisfactoriamente resuelta. Difuminar el dentro-fuera entre el mundo académico y su contexto social, cultural y económico, como nos planteaba en la sesión de ayer la profesora Andrea Díaz, es imprescindible. Esta mayor porosidad de instituciones y equipamientos, además de contribuir a identificar con mayor precisión los objetivos de las estrategias de cambio y, por ende, rendirlas más plausibles, posibilita a nivel micro interacciones muy prometedoras entre agentes de diverso signo presentes en la comunidad. Esa conversación impostergable a la que aludía Kathleen Southwark para conformar las alianzas que aporten la masa crítica suficiente para afrontar los retos que derivan de la necesidad de reducción de la huella de carbono a partir de nuestros sistemas culturales locales. Una conversación obligatoriamente cualificada, que la señora Southwark sitúa como precondición, en la que la señora Southwark Sitúa como precondiciones la honestidad, la transparencia y la responsabilidad. En esta relación con la honestidad se plantea Andrea de Francisco, del latín latas, la ejemplaridad y la coherencia integral de la acción artística como premisa para realizar sus potencialidades pedagógicas, comunicativas y movilizadoras. Las experiencias que compartió ayer con nosotros la profesora Díaz, en mi opinión, son merecedoras de atención por una diversidad de razones. Arraigan los proyectos de cambio en sus respectivos contextos, incrementan la plausibilidad de sus objetivos y el realismo de sus acciones, favorece una pedagogía colectiva teórico-práctica y aporta evidencias para afrontar objetivos más ambiciosos y de mayor escala en el futuro. Sobre esto último, las evidencias, una breve mención. Henry Murain se refirió a la necesidad de evidencias en las que apoyar diagnósticos y estrategias. No puedo estar más de acuerdo. La producción de datos que den cuenta del binomio cultura-sostenibilidad es una condición de posibilidad para la incorporación de mayor racionalidad instrumental en las estrategias de desarrollo urbano eficaces, eficientes, justas y sostenibles. Actividades desplegadas necesariamente o de manera prioritaria desde los equipamientos urbanos, el objeto de gran parte de nuestra conversación. En este contexto se sitúan también las interesantes aportaciones de Kathleen Southwell sobre la necesidad de dotarnos de estándares, indicadores y modelizaciones propios para superar la situación de relativa penuria en la que se sitúa el conocimiento específico sobre lo que ella denomina nuestro modelo de negocio, sintagma con lo que hacía referencia a ser menos exigente y menos autocomplacentes y defensivos. Recuerden su abundamiento sobre el greenwashing en la evaluación de la huella de carbono de los programas y equipamientos culturales de todo tipo y escala. Hablamos de evidencias, de bases empíricas, de casos de éxito, que animen voluntades colectivas y alienten a la ciudadanía a reapropiarse creativamente del espacio público y de los espacios culturales que la puntean. Sobre este particular convergen aproximaciones y miradas diferentes de ponentes y panelistas. Las personas deben sentirse identificadas y tranquilas, afirmaba ayer Iván Sánchez, para construir sus propios imaginarios y participar en la co-construcción de imaginarios urbanos compartidos. Y de nuevo emerge el papel de los equipamientos y los espacios culturales, que tienen un peso indiscutible. Los equipamientos e infraestructuras culturales son hitos decisivos del entramado y de los imaginarios urbanos, imaginarios, digo, en plural. Pero si se aspira a movilizar las potencialidades de los equipamientos culturales en un proceso de redefinición de la ciudad y de su percepción como contexto y recurso para los distintos proyectos de vida individuales y colectivos de sus habitantes, será necesario adoptar una perspectiva más comprensiva que la tradicional en el diseño de los equipamientos culturales. La reflexión sobre las funcionalidades de los equipamientos culturales se sitúa en la tensión entre la perspectiva individual y la necesidad de un contexto propicio para el desarrollo de procesos culturales y creativos. Para cumplir con sus funciones de entorno facilitador y de herramientas de activación del ecosistema cultural urbano, en clave de posibilidad de vidas plenas en entornos sostenibles y de distribución equitativa de capacidades culturales y expresivas, los equipamientos culturales han de desplegar, en mi opinión, de manera eficaz y eficiente el conjunto de sus funciones, tanto como proveedor de recursos, como de funciones semióticas, como de funciones operacionales. Y con esto hago referencia a la cuestión que formuló Ana Cuenca cuando se preguntaba en clave de reto cómo pueden generar involucramiento los equipamientos culturales. Pues me atrevo con una respuesta provisional. Se trataría de desplegar simultáneamente el conjunto de las funcionalidades de los equipamientos por oposición a la tendencia más convencional de centrarse casi exclusivamente en la función proveedora de recursos, sea esta de provisión de capital físico, capital financiero, capital relacional, capital formativo o capital simbólico. Disculpen porque creo que me están diciendo que debo terminar y que me he excedido en el tiempo.
Cuando entres,
Ajá.
vuelves a decir.
Parece que. Bien, vuelvo sobre el asunto de la transferencia social del conocimiento por su indudable importancia y porque ha sido objeto directa o indirecta de las intervenciones de gran número de participantes. Planteaba Iván Sánchez ayer que uno de los retos es transferir conocimiento innovador y disruptivo, los adjetivos son míos, a la política práctica de la acción social para formular proyectos y estrategias ancladas en la realidad del país y con capacidad transformadora contrastada. Pues bien, ya he mencionado que contamos con el enorme conocimiento acumulado y generado por las universidades y otras entidades del sistema de conocimiento, porque hay vida inteligente más allá de las universidades, durante las últimas décadas. Pero también mi experiencia profesional en contacto muy estrecho con una pluralidad de policymakers constata que la práctica efectiva de la política cultural raramente acude al estado del conocimiento y las decisiones en política cultural raramente lo tienen en cuenta. Es por ello que resulta una cuestión muy relevante, en mi opinión, profundizar en el análisis de las causas de este desacople entre oferta de conocimiento y necesidad de conocimiento y encontrar las claves para que esa relación sea más fluida. Si queremos aprovechar las posibilidades del tiempo de la cultura y del arte, hay que ahondar mucho más en el conocimiento. Y esto es una responsabilidad compartida, tanto desde el liderazgo público y la implicación de los centros de conocimiento, especialmente, aunque no solo, de las universidades y otros centros de investigación asimilados. En esta última reflexión la formulo a modo de transición a algunos apuntes o comentarios sobre la sesión de hoy, concretamente con la afirmación de la primera participante del día, Elizabeth Valenzuela, sobre la necesidad de traducir el saber técnico para que sea culturalmente relevante para las distintas voces y públicos que integran el país. Según la primera participante de la jornada, la cultura y el arte están especialmente dotados para fungir como sandbox, como entorno de pruebas, para propiciar procesos de cambios individuales, en esto se refería a la sensibilización, y colectivos a partir de la activación de los recursos culturales y creativos del territorio. El factor singular del arte y la cultura sería su capacidad de despertar emociones, esperanzas significativas para las vidas de las personas. Llegados aquí, me permito regresar momentáneamente a la sesión de ayer y proponer anudar esta reflexión con la afirmación de Caitlin Southworth sobre la importancia de la cultura para generar impactos emocionales en los individuos conducentes a cambios de conciencia y comportamientos en una dirección más sostenible y menos depredador de nuestros entornos. Termino de una manera muy sumarial y me van a permitir dar solo unas pinceladas en exceso deslavazada sobre el tercer y último panel finalizado hace solo unos minutos y que aún estoy digiriendo. En opinión de Carolina Urrutia, la cercanía de los valores culturales y medioambientales permite, en principio, ensayar políticas de incentivos públicos de naturaleza voluntaria a modo de contrapunto de las iniciativas más rígidas y de sus limitaciones. Un contrapunto a las políticas públicas sobrereguladoras. Interesante idea. Una apuesta de esta naturaleza, de carácter volitivo, no queda, como es obvio, blindada ante la inevitabilidad de conflictos. En este sentido, la propuesta de Gabriela Melitsko de generar espacios de resolución de problemas resultaría un complemento que pudiera perfeccionar la iniciativa y contribuir a su éxito. Sobre la cuestión de idear espacios de participación incluso flexibles, atentos a las distintas realidades de los distintos sectores de actividad, se refirió a la Secretaría de Distrital de Ambiente. Las políticas públicas no pueden ser lechos de procusto si quieren contar con todas las energías presentes en nuestras comunidades y ciudades. Y no quiero terminar sin hacer una mención al indiferentismo espacial que ha presidido y lamentablemente preside aún hoy muchas decisiones sobre la ubicación de equipamientos culturales en nuestras ciudades. Bien por la falta de ponderación o bien por el exceso de confianza en la ingeniería social, muchos de nuestros equipamientos se deciden ubicar a modo de naves alienígenas totalmente descontextualizados. Estos generan una serie de dificultades que contribuyen también a un desaprovechamiento de sus virtudes y a la recarga de su peso y de su huella de carbono, en la que, entre otras, podrían disminuirse si se revisitara el mapa de distribución territorial del parque de equipamiento con una visión mucho más sostenible. Por ejemplo, en lo que se refiere a su interconectividad, reduciendo y contribuyendo a reducir y a domesticar, por ejemplo, el tráfico privado. El plan de ordenamiento territorial del que se hablaba en este panel podría ser una oportunidad para que el sector cultural y creativo aportara una revisión propia. Bueno, lo dejo aquí. Estoy convencido de que la memoria del foro recogerá de manera mucho más generosa de lo que yo he hecho y en toda su riqueza los muchos y muy interesantes ejemplos que los 4 panelistas que me han precedido ahora, en esta mañana, han compartido con nosotros. Muchas gracias.
Y de verdad, muchas gracias a todas las personas que nos han seguido y que seguramente después van a continuar viendo estos 3 días de panel y de foro. Muchas gracias, doctor Ramos, también por esa relatoría que nos ha ofrecido, brindado, y que pues seguramente va a ser parte justamente de esa recolección de memorias de este foro y que va a completar lo que venimos haciendo desde el año pasado con el primer foro. Para el Instituto Distrital de las Artes, esta apuesta es fundamental, es importantísimo continuar con la reflexión al mismo tiempo que avanzamos con la acción. Para nosotros, estos espacios nos permiten ir nutriendo las ideas, ir nutriendo las iniciativas e ir, además de nutrirlas, ir puliendo las estrategias que ya venimos desarrollando. Para la subdirección de equipamientos, además, estos espacios se vuelven fundamentales, justamente por la posibilidad que nos brindan de ir acercando los avances que se van haciendo hacia otros públicos. Y creo que ahora el reto más profundo y más fuerte que tenemos tiene que ver con la implementación, pero sobre todo con eso que también ha estado dando vueltas en todos los paneles, que tiene que ver ya no solo con la transformación de las infraestructuras o los cambios en los modelos energéticos, sino con la transformación de las iniciativas y básicamente de los comportamientos de los seres humanos que habitan estos espacios y estos equipamientos, tanto artistas como públicos, como gestores, productores, técnicos, logísticos, todas las personas que hacen parte de este ecosistema de las artes deben empezar también a cambiar sus pequeñas, a hacer cambios pequeños en las formas de hacer y de entender. Puedo como artista rechazar la botella de plástico y pedir un vaso de cristal, por ejemplo. Y eso es un pequeño cambio, pero muy profundo, que nos ayuda a ir disminuyendo los plásticos de un solo uso. Puedo desde las grandes empresas productoras de eventos empezar a movilizar transformaciones energéticas. Puedo adaptarme a las nuevas luminarias. Puedo hacer pequeñas cosas que ayudan muchísimo. Puedo no imprimir mi boleta como público, sino traerla en el teléfono para que sea leída digitalmente. Y eso ayuda a disminuir la cantidad de papel que usamos para boletería. Las condiciones, como vemos, están dadas, las posibilidades están dadas. Hay muchas alternativas que ya se están implementando y hay otras nuevas que estamos seguros que van a ir saliendo. Los laboratorios que estamos haciendo en estos momentos en paralelo con el foro y que están ocurriendo en los demás escenarios de la ciudad, pues van a ayudar a traer nuevas ideas también de cómo vamos implementando estas acciones. Pero pues es una responsabilidad de absolutamente todas las personas que habitan, en este caso, la ciudad de Bogotá. No solo de los servidores públicos, no solo de los equipos técnicos y logísticos que cada vez están más comprometidos, no solo de los artistas y no solo del público. Tenemos que estar todos ahí. Y este es un todos que realmente nos involucra y debe involucrarnos efectivamente a esa palabra que a veces es muy difusa, no ese somos todos y no es nadie, no, aquí somos todos y somos todos, porque al final de cuentas el planeta que tenemos es uno solo y el tiempo que tenemos es corto, el tiempo que tenemos es corto. Todavía podemos corregir, todavía podemos lograr hacer transformaciones, pero el tiempo es corto, el tic-tac está corriendo. Entonces, para eso nos necesitamos mutuamente, para eso convocamos a los artistas a ayudarnos a pensar en nuevas alternativas de pensar este tipo de iniciativas. Convocamos a los artistas, por ejemplo, mañana sábado en el Teatro Tercer vamos a tener un modelo de economía distinto, no es nuevo porque se hacía mucho antes de la aparición del dinero, que es el cambalache o el trueque. Y vamos a cambalachar escenografías, vestuarios, ideas, libretos, procesos de producción. Yo no sé qué va a pasar ahí. Y es maravilloso eso, porque es una invitación directa a hacer algo. Sabemos muchos de los que hacemos teatro durante mucho tiempo que nosotros estamos metidos sin quererlo en la onda de reutilizar. Reutilizamos todo, ¿cierto, Juan? Reutilizamos todo. Pero ahora tenemos que hacerlo de forma consciente, ¿sí? Ya no dejarnos seducir por el hecho de comprar y volver a cambiar para cada obra la escenografía y no reutilizar algunas cosas, o estar produciendo vestuarios y después dejarlos abandonados porque se acabó la obra. Puedo cambiarlos con otros que de pronto les funcionen. Y así funciona con las ideas y así funciona con todo. De verdad quiero mucho agradecer a mi equipo que ha estado pendiente de este foro, a toda la gente que ha hecho parte y que hace parte de la subdirección de equipamientos y también del Instituto Distrital de las Artes que ha estado pendiente de estos procesos. Vamos haciéndolo despacio, pero despacio vamos cambiando las conciencias de las personas. Este es un camino largo que esperamos acelerar un poco porque no puede seguir siendo tan lento. Y por eso estamos tomando las decisiones que sean necesarias y las transformaciones que son necesarias. Ya iniciamos con los procesos de cambio de las luminarias del Teatro Julio de la Media Torta, del escenario móvil Armando de la Torre. El Teatro Mayor Julio Mario Santo Domingo ya también cambió todas sus luminarias de servicio y está en el proceso también de transformación y renovación de las luminarias también de la zona artística. Y estamos cambiando el Planetario de Bogotá, estamos transformando también costumbres y culturas en términos de boletería y por favor estén pendientes todas y todos de las redes porque allí vamos a seguir teniendo llamados a la acción constantes frente a este tema. Tenemos que involucrarnos, tenemos que meternos, tenemos que modificar las formas de hacer y de consumir y de crear. De nuevo, gracias al equipo y gracias a los aliados que han estado con nosotros, que no los nombro completos porque seguro se me queda alguno aquí de memoria, pero todos nuestros aliados que han estado allí pendientes, muchas gracias por estar y por creer en este foro, pero es más que en este foro, en este movimiento de cambio que nos involucra a todos y todos. Mañana, hoy viernes, tenemos acciones en el Teatro del Parque. Mañana vamos a estar en la Media Torta con laboratorios y conciertos. Vamos a cerrar con Herencia de Timbiquí y las acciones que continúan. Y con llamado con Nicolás Buenaventura y Marta Gómez en esta misma salita, en la Sala Gaitán, para que vengan, para que se programen, porque también esto motiva la acción. Muchísimas gracias. Por favor, sigan pendientes de las redes porque allí seguimos colgando información. Vamos a seguir rotando los videos, los eventos en la página idartesencasa.gov.co, en la página del Idartes también, y allí vamos a tener absolutamente toda la programación y pueden volver a estas conferencias, pueden volver a estos paneles cada vez que quieran como espacio de reflexión permanente y constante. Muchísimas gracias, nos vemos muy pronto y hasta luego.
Hi, my name is Ian Garrett. I'm director for the Center for Sustainable Practice in the Arts. We're a global think tank based in Canada where we operate as a not-for-profit corporation. The CSPA views sustainability as the intersection of environmental balance, social equity, economic stability, and a strengthened cultural infrastructure. Seeing ourselves as evolved out of the principles of the 1987 Brundtland Report and 1992 Rio de Janeiro Earth Summit, the CSPA aligns itself with the policies of Agenda 21 for Culture as a resource for artists and arts organization. We've been operating since 2008. where myself and my co-founder Miranda Wright brought together a number of different initiatives under one umbrella to provide additional sustainable services and sustainable consultation for the field. At the time, we were based in Los Angeles, but have since moved to Toronto, Canada, based off on our affiliation and my faculty position at York University, which is one of the global leaders in sustainability research, generally, and also within arts and culture. The CSPA's activities include various research and other initiatives positioning arts and culture as a driver of sustainable societies. Our activities include the publication of the CSPA Quarterly, which is a periodical which is released on special topics related to ecology, sustainability, and artistic practice, released 4 times a year, along with various special reports that come out without a preset schedule, but based off of various projects that we're working on. We also engage in research initiatives with many strategic partners. We distribute and redistribute information online and through social networks and through other channels regarding different artistic practices and how they intersect with sustainability. We work on the creation and sharing of tools for sustainable artistic practices, and we convene and conduct various convergences and workshops on those practices as well. The CSPA provides research, training, consultancy services, all related to sustainable development, in particular environmental and ecological responsibility in the arts and culture sector. Some of our key projects right now are as one of the lead partners on the adaptation of the creative green tools created by Julie's Bicycle for the Canadian context. We're also one half of the team, along with our partners in the US, the Arctic Cycle, that produce the Climate Change Theater Action, a global distributed festival where every other year 50 new climate change plays are commissioned and then made available to more than 300 producing partners around the world. In addition to this, we're regularly working with various arts organizations, festivals, etc., to be able to help them be more ecologically mindful, more just, and in many cases go carbon neutral.